I'm Mark, 33, and I've always been the kind of guy who doesn't like to stir the pot, especially when it comes to family. I grew up with the classic older brother, younger sister dynamic. Me, the calm and steady one, and Michelle, the emotional hurricane. She's 2 years younger than me and has always had a flair for drama. In high school, she faked fainting during a pop quiz because she wasn't emotionally prepared. She used to say things like that with a straight face, too. Despite everything, I loved her. I still do, in that drained, complicated way you love someone who exhausts you, but has been in your life forever. Our parents, especially my mom, always coddled her. Michelle was the baby, the miracle girl, the one they didn't think they'd have. So when she cried, someone else paid. And when she messed up, someone else fixed it. Usually me. I've done all right for myself, software developer, married to a quiet, sharp-witted woman named Elise. We live just outside of Chicago, on our home, no kids yet. Elise is the type of person who never raises her voice, but always knows exactly what to say. She sees things in people that I miss, especially when it comes to my family. And she'd warned me about this wedding. Michelle had gotten engaged to a guy named Darren about a year ago. He was tall, smug, and always seemed like he was performing in a toothpaste commercial. He shook your hand with both of his, like he was sealing a deal instead of saying hello. My first impression wasn't great, and Elise's was worse. After they left dinner the first time we met him, she'd said, "Your sister's marrying a mirror. He only loves the way he looks next to her." I brushed it off. I didn't want to be that brother, the skeptical one, the cynic. Michelle was happy, and when she asked me, well, half assumed, really, if I could help out with some of the wedding costs, I didn't hesitate. "It's just a loan," she said over coffee one morning. "We're tight on the down payment for the venue, and the caterer's been holding the date for 3 months already." The loan ended up being $22,000. I wired it over without much fanfare. I didn't need a big thank you or any praise. I just wanted her to have her day. I'd been married 4 years, and I knew what it meant to have things go smoothly. Michelle was over the moon. She even sent me a voice note. "You're the best big brother ever. Darren says thank you, too, like a million times. We're lucky to have you." It was one of those rare moments where she sounded genuine. Elise raised an eyebrow when I told her how much I sent. "Did you get anything in writing?" "No, I trust her." Elise stared at me. "Mark, this is the woman who once asked if she could borrow your car for a weekend and brought it back with a cracked windshield and a gas tank on it." "She's my sister," I said. "She's your very expensive sister," Elise muttered. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a flurry of updates in the family group chat. Michelle had added me, our mom, dad, Darren, his parents, and her bridesmaids. Every day it was something new: florists, dress fittings, guest list debates. At first, Elise and I would scroll through the photos together at night, mostly amused. "Why does she need 5 types of roses for the centerpieces?" Elise asked once. "Is this a wedding or a botanical experiment?" But as the wedding got closer, Elise started getting quieter. She didn't say much when Michelle joked in the group chat about how Elise should just wear something simple so she doesn't clash with the bridal party. She didn't react when Darren's mother, Sandra, made a snide comment about some people just not understanding family traditions when Elise politely declined to attend the joint bridal shower due to work. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, Michelle sent me a message. Not even a phone call, a message. "Hey Mark, just a heads up. Darren's parents feel like Elise makes some people uncomfortable. It's nothing personal. Just, can you come alone? Just for the ceremony. We'll all meet up afterward and it'll be fine." I stared at it for a long time. Uncomfortable? Elise? The woman who barely speaks at family events, who always brings a gift, who handwrites thank you notes. I knew exactly what it was. Elise was smart, observant, and she didn't play along with Michelle's delusions or Darren's charm show. That threatened them. I didn't reply right away. I sat there, phone on my lap, watching the little typing bubble blink and disappear. Then another message popped up. "Please don't make this a thing. It's just one day. It's my day." I showed Elise. She just nodded, lips pressed together. "Well," she said quietly, "at least now you know where we stand." It was like a switch flipped in me. A quiet sort of clarity. Not rage, just finality. I opened the group chat, scrolled all the way up, then hit leave chat. No dramatic message. No accusations. Just gone. Michelle messaged me again 5 minutes later. "Wait, what?" I didn't reply. Instead, I logged into my online banking. The payment to the venue? It was still pending final confirmation. The catering deposit? Still reversible. The florist? My account. All three vendors had my name on the contracts. I knew because Michelle had sent me PDFs and said, "You're more organized than me. Just handle the paperwork and I'll deal with the Pinterest board." It took all of 10 minutes to start the refund process. A few clicks, a few emails. Then I shut my laptop and went to make dinner. The wedding was that Saturday. Elise and I went out for brunch. At 1:03 p.m., I got my first call, then the second, then the avalanche. By 2 o'clock, I had 143 missed calls. The last voicemail was from my mother, shrieking into the phone like a siren. "What did you do, Mark? People are standing around. There's no food, no flowers, nothing." I played it once. Then I turned off my phone, leaned back in my chair, and said to Elise, "How's the French toast?" She smiled, calm as ever. "Delicious." And that's when the texts started coming in from people I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, friends of the family, even my old high school principal. But one message, in particular, stood out, and it was from Darren. It was exactly 4 words, no punctuation. "You'll regret this forever." I just stared at it. And then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I expected from someone like Darren, performative, melodramatic, and completely out of touch with reality. Regret? For what? Not paying for the lavish stage he and my sister wanted to parade on while they pushed my wife into the shadows? I showed Elise the message. She read it, blinked, and said, "Forever's a long time to hold a grudge when you can't afford to pay your florist." The rest of the day was quiet. We stayed off social media, turned off the TV, and went for a walk downtown. Elise bought herself a new book from a little shop tucked between a bakery and a vintage record store. I grabbed a copy of The Art of Saying No. It felt appropriate. That evening, just before bed, I checked my email, something I probably shouldn't have done, but curiosity got the better of me. There were dozens of new messages. Some were from the vendors, confirming the cancellations. Others were from Michelle. Long, rambling essays that bounced between hurt, rage, and denial. "You ruined everything," one said. "Do you know how embarrassing it was to stand in front of all those people and explain why there were no chairs set up? Why the photographer never showed up? Why the cake never came?" Apparently, they didn't even have a backup cake. Just some table of Costco cupcakes Darren's and tried to pass off as minimalist. I only know that because a mutual cousin, Olivia, sent me a picture of it, captioned, "This you?" But I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Michelle and Darren had made it clear Elise wasn't welcome, and by extension, neither was I. They just hadn't expected that the money came with strings like basic human decency. The thing about growing up with someone like Michelle is that you spend years assuming their chaos is your job to clean up. And for the longest time, I did. I fixed. I paid. I forgave. But this time felt different. This time, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like a villain. I felt free. My mom, of course, was livid. Her voicemail was 10 solid minutes of finger-pointing, shrieking, and some truly creative guilt-tripping. "You embarrassed your sister. You made us all look bad. Darren's parents think we're white trash now. How could you do this to family?" I didn't bother replying. But I did listen to it twice, and I have to admit, it was kind of satisfying. Like finally hearing the truth about how little they valued us until they needed us. What struck me most was how not a single message, not one, included the word sorry. Not for the way Elise was treated. Not for the message asking me to show up alone. Not for taking the money and assuming they'd earned it by default. Just blame. Just fury. Over the next few days, word spread. I started getting messages from distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Some were shocked, others secretly impressed. One had even said, honestly, it was about time someone stood up to Michelle. Apparently, my sister's pattern of entitlement didn't stop at me. But the real kicker came a week later. My dad called. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail, calm, tired, and heavy with something that almost sounded like regret. "Mark, your mom's been crying for days. Michelle won't talk to us. Darren's threatening legal action. I just want to understand what happened. Maybe we can fix this. Call me back." That one I did listen to 3 times. But I didn't call him back. Because I knew what would happen if I did. They'd try to twist it. Make it my fault. Spin the narrative until I was the bitter brother who ruined a wedding out of spite. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was that I made a choice. A quiet one. A simple one. I chose Elise. And after years of choosing them, of choosing peace at the cost of my own dignity, That felt like the only decision worth making. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because the refund wasn't the only surprise I left them with. See, while the $22,000 refund was the headline, it wasn't the full story. What Michelle and Darren didn't know, what no one in my family knew, is that I hadn't just been the financial backer for their wedding. I had been the legal organizer. The paperwork, the contracts, the vendor deposits, all filed under a business entity I quietly owned, a small event planning LLC I started a few years ago when Elise and I briefly toyed with side gigs. It was meant to be a low-risk experiment. We'd helped a friend plan a fundraiser once, and Elise said, "You know, you're good at logistics. If we ever wanted extra cash, you could run small events under a company." So I did. It never turned into much, just sat dormant in a file drawer and had a basic checking account with my name on it. But when Michelle had asked me to handle the paperwork, I saw a chance to make everything cleaner, safer, controlled. So I routed the contracts through the LLC. Every payment, every booking, every signature. And that meant one very important thing. When Darren threatened legal action, he'd be threatening the wrong person. Any refund dispute wouldn't come to me, it'd go through a corporate email account tied to a legal entity in good standing. They had no idea I'd shielded myself, that I had receipts, that if they tried to lie, I had signed documents with timestamps, and that they had technically signed off on my terms that clearly stated the booking party, that's me, could cancel at any time prior to final confirmation. But I didn't do all that to protect myself from a lawsuit. No, I did it because I learned something after years of being the family fixer. Fixers don't get thank yous. They get used. And I was tired of being used. The Monday after the wedding, I got a call from Michelle. I didn't answer, but she left a message. Not yelling this time. Not angry. Just a soft, slow, sniffling voice saying, "I can't believe you would humiliate me like that. In front of everyone. I was your sister. I am your sister. And you let her come between us." I stared at the phone, sitting on the table next to my coffee mug. Elise was across from me, legs tucked under her, reading. I hit play again, volume low. When it ended, I didn't say anything. Just took a sip of my coffee. After a while, Elise looked up. "Do you feel bad?" I thought about it. I really thought about it. Because the old me would have. He would have replayed her words a dozen times. Tried to see it from her perspective. Blamed himself. But this time? No, I said finally. Not even a little. And that's when the real fallout began. Because Darren's parents? Oh, they were furious. Not just at the cancellation, but at how it made them look. What kind of family pulls out last minute like that? They apparently said to my mom. It's classless. Low. Vindictive. And Sandra, his mother, the one who said Elise didn't understand traditions? She tried to spin it into some martyr narrative, telling guests that they had offered to pay for everything but were ignored. A cousin sent me the audio from a post-wedding brunch rant where she actually said, "Honestly, we should have known better than to rely on his kind of people. Quiet types are always hiding something. My kind of people." Elise just laughed when she heard it. I should put that on a tote bag. Then came the text from my dad. Not a voicemail this time. Just a single line. "You've embarrassed this family more than you'll ever understand." I read it, then deleted it. Because I do understand. I understand that they only ever saw me as a bank with arms. I understand that Elise was never going to be welcomed, no matter how polite or graceful she was, because she didn't play their game. I understand that love, real love, doesn't come with an invoice. And I understand that they still haven't figured out the last piece of the puzzle. Because there's one more thing they don't know. The venue they thought they booked wasn't just some popular lakeside estate Darren had found on Instagram. It was my property. Well, mine and Elise's. We bought it 3 years ago, fully paid in cash after a startup payout as an investment. It used to be an old winery, but the location was so gorgeous and the grounds so immaculate, we turned it into a rentable event space and hired a manager to run it under a different name. We didn't advertise it to family. No pictures. No bragging. Just a smart asset. And when Michelle sent me a list of top dream wedding venues, ours was third. I smiled when I saw it and quietly arranged the booking under a different name through a planner they didn't know was me. They never realized they were standing in the middle of my land. They never knew that every insult, every whispered jab, every smug glance they cast across the room that day was being thrown on soil I owned. And when the wedding unraveled, when the music stopped, the food didn't arrive, and the guests left in silence, they blamed everyone but the man who built the stage. They still don't know, but they will. Because next week, I'm putting up a new sign at the venue's entrance. New ownership. Private events only. Family discount suspended indefinitely. And I'll be mailing them a copy of the invoice they never bothered to read, along with a formal notice of venue policy. No outside guests allowed without invitation. No bookings accepted without pre-approval. No exceptions. But that's just the beginning. Because Michelle and Darren's wedding wasn't the only thing I canceled that weekend. And they're about to find out what else disappeared, without notice. The second cancellation wasn't as flashy. It didn't involve guests or flowers or gourmet appetizers. It involved a quiet signature I'd withdrawn from a joint financial agreement. Michelle didn't just come to me for help with the wedding. 6 months before that, she'd also come to me with a business opportunity. Something life-changing, as she put it. She and Darren wanted to start a boutique home decor brand. Rustic, elevated, timeless were her exact words, which she repeated as though they were a magic spell that would make investors materialize. It was the kind of thing that might have worked if they had experience, or a plan, or, frankly, a shred of realism. But they had enthusiasm. And, more importantly to Michelle, they had me. Mark, she'd said over brunch one day, twirling a spoon in her coffee like she was stirring fate itself, you know how to structure things. You can handle the admin. All I need is your support. Just to get it off the ground. As a co-signer. Not even your money, just your name. Elise had asked questions. Michelle dodged most of them. Darren, of course, had been eager. We've already got a supplier in Bali and a deal lined up with a design blogger who gets, like, 80K views per day. We just need help securing the business credit. It was supposed to be a favor. Something passive. Michelle insisted I wouldn't have to do anything once it was set up. So, reluctantly, I agreed. We filed a partnership agreement, opened a business line of credit, and I added my name to the LLC they created, Woven Roots. I'd put in $0, just my signature, and in doing so, gave them access to a sizable credit line that could never have gotten a loan. I made two things clear. The business had to remain in good standing. Any expenses over $5,000 had to be run by me in writing. They never did. At the time, Elise told me she had a bad feeling about it. They'll burn through the credit line in 3 months, she warned. I gave them more credit than that, literally and figuratively. Turned out, Elise was being generous. When the wedding blew up, I went digging. Not out of spite, at least not at first, but out of curiosity. I logged into the business account portal for Woven Roots. The first thing I saw? A $7,300 charge for influencer marketing, paid to someone whose claim to fame was a 2-minute segment on a morning show in 2019. Then came charges for imported textiles that never made it out of customs, followed by a $1,500 charge to a luxury logo designer whose website used stock photos. I scrolled and scrolled. My jaw clenched tighter with each swipe. They had maxed the line. Not a dime of income. Not a single paying client. Just debt. Dressed up as brand development. But the kicker? They'd use some of that credit, not cash, credit, to book things for the wedding. Dresses for Michelle's bridal party. A weekend getaway strategy meeting that just so happened to take place at a Napa Valley spa. Even Darren's tux, ordered from an ethical tailor in Paris. All billed to Woven Roots. That violated the terms of our agreement 6 ways from Sunday. So I called the bank, removed myself from the LLC with documentation of the breach, and froze the account pending investigation. The process was already in motion by the time Michelle's post-wedding rage texts came flooding in. And then came the moment I'd been dreading and, strangely, looking forward to. The call from Darren. It was 10:12 a.m. on a Wednesday. Elise was reading on the couch. I answered. "Mark," he said, his voice clipped and tight. "We need to talk." I waited. I just got off the phone with the bank. They said the account's frozen. What's going on? I didn't speak. "Mark," he said again, firmer this time, "this is affecting our business." "That's the thing," I said, calm as a pond. "It's not our business anymore." "What does that mean?" "It means you broke the terms of the agreement. I have it in writing. The partnership's dissolved, and the financial liability's yours now." Silence. Then a hollow laugh. "You think you can just walk away? You're on those contracts. You're liable too." I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "No, Darren. I was on the contracts. But not anymore. I have dated documentation, emails showing unauthorized use of funds, and a withdrawal filed and approved by the bank. You and Michelle? You're the only ones left holding the bag. You'll ruin her," he snapped. "She's an adult," I said. "She made her choices." He didn't reply right away. but I could hear his breathing. Fast, uneven, rage building. Then he growled, "This family is done with you." I almost thanked him. It was the first honest thing he'd said to me in over a year. After I hung up, I sat for a while. Just sat. Let it wash over me. All of it. The betrayal. The silence. The relief. And then I laughed. Not out of cruelty. Out of peace. Because for once, I wasn't cleaning up someone else's mess. I was letting them sit in it. But that wasn't the last message I got. Because that night, as Elise and I sat down to dinner, a notification lit up my phone. It was a video from a guest at the wedding. And what I saw in that clip changed everything. It wasn't the venue. It wasn't the empty tables. It was Michelle standing at the altar, eyes wide, mouth open. Because someone had walked in. Someone she hadn't expected. And when I saw who it was, my blood ran cold. Because whatever I thought was over, wasn't. Not even close. The video was short, just under 30 seconds, but every frame was seared into my brain. Michelle stood at the altar, in full bridal glam, looking like someone who'd just been sucker punched mid-sentence. Around her, guests murmured, confused, some glancing toward the back of the venue. Then the camera panned. And there he was, my father, wearing my tuxedo. It was the one Elise and I had tailored together for my cousin's wedding 2 years ago, midnight navy, slim cut, subtle embroidery on the cuffs that read M and E on the inside wrist. It was unmistakable. It had been in our coat closet for months. Or so I thought. I paused the video, stared. I knew he and Michelle had always been close. I knew he defended her at my expense more times than I could count. But this was new. This was another level entirely. "Why is he wearing your tux?" Elise asked, her voice low. "I don't know," I said. I didn't even notice it was missing. The video resumed. My dad walked past stunned guests like he owned the place, straight toward the altar, stopping just shy of the steps. Michelle whispered something, and he nodded solemnly. Then he reached into his pocket and handed her a folded piece of paper. Her eyes skimmed it, then she blinked furiously and laughed. Laughed, like something had been solved, like I'd just been erased. The clip cut off there. No context, no explanation. But I didn't need any. Elise watched me carefully. "You think that was a backup?" I said flatly. He took my tux. Probably fed her some story about how this wedding wasn't ruined. That he'd step in. That everything could still go on if they just rewrote the ending without me in it. It all made sense now. The cold voicemail. The silence. The fact that neither my mom nor Michelle had mentioned the frozen business account since. They weren't just trying to fix the wreckage. They were replacing me. And that was the moment something inside me finally broke clean. Not with anger, but with clarity. They hadn't just chosen Michelle. They'd chosen a version of events where I didn't exist. A fantasy where the quiet, dependable son could be stripped for parts, money, favors, signatures, and then left behind like old scaffolding after the building's finished. They weren't crying over me. They were crying because I stopped being useful. 2 days later, I mailed a letter. No texts. No dramatic voicemails. Just a plain envelope with one typed page. I sent it to Michelle, my parents, and Darren. The letter read, "As of today, I'm officially withdrawing from any and all personal and financial commitments connected to this family. This includes the wedding, the business venture, and future involvement in family events. You may consider all ties dissolved. Do not contact me for money, support, mediation, or apologies. I am no longer interested in playing the role I've been assigned. I've made peace with what I've done. I hope, one day, you can do the same. This is not a grudge. It's a boundary." Then I signed it. Mark E. Afterward, I took Elise's hand and we booked a flight. One way. To Lisbon. It wasn't planned. We just opened a map and pointed. We stayed in a quiet Airbnb with white curtains and ocean wind and a little espresso machine that Elise used every morning like clockwork. I didn't check my email. I didn't open group chats. I didn't care about how many more calls or texts came in after the letter. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. About a month later, I got one last message. From Olivia, my cousin. Just a single text. "They're still trying to fix it. Darren left. Michelle moved back in with your parents. The business is done. And your dad still wears that tux. It's weird." I smiled. Then muted the thread. Some endings don't come with closure. They come with distance. And sometimes, that's the healthiest revenge of all. Not screaming. Not exploding. Just walking away so calmly that they can't tell if you're gone. Or just never looking back. I didn't ruin Michelle's wedding. They did. I just took my name and my money off the guest list. And it turns out, without those, there wasn't a wedding to begin with.